looking forward to my bed more. And who will warm it tonight? Who will catch your eye? Actually, tonight I would prefer to retire alone. I crave sleep more than I crave a woman. That would be a first, Freya snorted. Who do you have your eye on? I too look forward to sleeping alone, but nobody expects anything different from me. You're just more discreet. I just have fewer options. Leif shrugged, knowing that was the truth. Few men attempted to look at his sister, let alone touch her. There had been a few, but Freya saw the wisdom in keeping her attachments short and uncomplicated, for one day she would leave to make her home among another village with another jarl. She understood no husband would want a wife who was too knowledgeable about bed sport. For a bride in a political match, there was a stark difference between knowing enough to satisfy her new husband and knowing enough to make him suspicious of her fidelity and loyalty. Leif counted himself lucky in that area, since people only expected him to enjoy himself before and after his marriage. Freya entered the great hall ahead of Leif and moved to a spot at the head table, sitting next to their mother. Leif looked around and waved to several men who hailed him and attempted to place a mead horn into his hand. He drank sparingly as always. It was a rare occasion now when he let himself get so intoxicated that he was not in complete control of his faculties. He learned how dangerous that was as a young man. Too much alcohol led him to bed the wrong woman, whose husband did not like to share, and he came close to losing his life for a night he couldn't even remember. Leif sat to his father's right, with his mother and sister to his father's left. His cousin Bjorn already sat to his right. "You came," Bjorn observed. "You know, like I do, none of us could miss this. Look at the men. They're enjoying the feast and revelry. We couldn't disappoint everyone by not appearing. I don't know how they cannot crave peace and quiet as much as we do, after such a long time spent together. I am beginning to think you, Freya, and I are the strange ones. Perhaps, but that doesn't mean I don't still want to retire early with a willing woman, and then lose myself to sleep for a full moon. If that's the case, no one will fault you for retiring early. You know neither Freya nor I will leave with someone, so we're stuck here until the end. Even after Mother and Father retire." Leif sighed and forced himself not to swipe his hand across his face. He looked around the crowded hall and envied the others their merriment and light-heartedness. The voyage was a financial success, but with more setbacks than usual. Weather delayed them in both directions, and fighting with another band of Norsemen had cost them many men before they even landed in Scotland. Responsibility of captaining the ships lay at the hands of Leif, Bjorn, Freya, and their two other closest friends, Thyra and Strian. The 5 warriors grew up together in the Trøndelag and captained their ships after being sent off on expeditions without their fathers. Thyra was the daughter of his father's cousin, and Strian was the son of his father's previous warrior captain. Leif looked around and found Thyra and Strian sitting with their families at the table closest to the jarls. They looked as exhausted as he did, but they both seemed to enjoy the festivities. They had the responsibility of their own ships and men, but the overall expedition rested on his shoulders, and he only shared the burden with Freya and Bjorn. "You need a woman between your sheets, and between your legs," Bjorn teased. "That may well be, but I need sleep far more. Old man, you must work out your cock to keep it in shape, or it'll shrivel up like an old man's sword arm. If that were the case, your cock should be the strongest in the village. Yet that isn't what I hear from many of the women." Leif laughed as Bjorn looked ready to smash in his teeth. "Perhaps they only say that to make you feel better." Leif laughed even harder, but it was cut short when the door to the hall swung open, and a contingent of warriors who did not belong to his father strode in. Leif recognized Ragnvald Thorsson as the bear of a man who led the pack. They approached, and his father stood when their unexpected guests arrived at the head table. "What brings you here, Ragnvald? It's good to see you, old friend, but we weren't expecting you," boomed Ivar Sorensen.